You're listening to the Connection Care Community Podcast, a podcast designed to help you understand your body more deeply and feel more confident navigating your hormones, cycle, and fertility. Each episode offers grounded, research-informed guidance and integrative tools to support hormone health, embodied awareness, and informed choice. If you're seeking clarity, connection, and a more trusting relationship with your body, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Here's your host, the founder of Connection Care Therapy, Majida.
Hello and welcome to the Connection Care Community Podcast. My name is Majida, and today we're talking about something that gets overlooked in preconception conversations, but is actually foundational to reproductive health, and that is the power of connection. So I know that sounds very woo and very kumbaya and kind of out there, but just stick with me and hear me out. So for many, preconception can become a private project. It's oftentimes framed as something that we're doing behind the scenes. We're maybe adjusting diets or changing supplements. You start tracking your cycle. Maybe you start running a few laps here or there. It's something that you hold internally until you're ready to share with others, and that makes perfect sense. However, one of the things that I want to offer today is that preconception is actually deeply relational. Why is that? Well, our hormones are shaped by connection. Right? Our nervous system is influenced by relationships. Resilience is strengthened through support. And your reproductive wellness is often held by the communities that you trust the most. So, in this episode, which is inspired by my third article in relationship to Birth Defects Prevention Month, where I decided to frame that conversation in terms of preconception support, I'm going to explore how the collective nature of fertility and preparing to conceive is really something that we all should maybe consider tapping into. So, there was a moment from early on in my work that I oftentimes come back to, and it was when I first started doing work with those who are navigating, I'm going to be preparing to conceive. I'm not right now, but I'm in the preconception process. And so I was working with this one client who was navigating her own preconception journey, and she was doing it mostly on her own, which is what we mostly see, right? She was doing everything that you would think a person would do in preparation for preconception. She was doing the nutritional thing. She was doing the lifestyle changes and making sure that there was a low tox household and all of the lab testing and charting. And so on paper, this client was doing everything right. However, and how she ended up chatting with me is that emotionally, she was really depleted. And so if there's anyone out there who has experienced either a conscious conception or trying to conceive journey, or who has navigated the preconception world, it can get really, really dense. And so her depletion is not really that surprising. Anxiety, right? She started to experience anxiety. She has started to experience disconnection from herself. Interestingly, the word resentment came up because she was actually starting to resent the preparation process. She was tired in a way that rest just did not seem to account for. And so as part of her integrative plan, when we started to work together, one of the things that I gently encouraged her to consider was joining a support group. She was hesitant at first. It can be very vulnerable to say yes to a space like that. But after a couple of months of us working together, she felt like she could give something like a support group a try. And what she noticed was that something really shifted for her almost immediately. As she listened to others who were navigating either trying to conceive or lost journeys, other women who were sharing their stories, right? Their fears, their uncertainty, their curiosity. Something in her nervous system started to soften, and she started to sleep better. And she reported that she was feeling less braced in her everyday life. And so she said to me in one of our sessions that she didn't realize how heavy all of what she was holding was until someone else was willing to even hold a piece of that with her, right? In a shared container, in a shared space. And that moment really has stayed with me. It has stayed with me to the extent that it informs how I work when I am supporting those who are on their fertility journey, because it reminded me of something absolutely essential. Preconception, fertility, our hormone health, these conversations are meant to be held in community. And it's not just, right, the woo-woo side of things. There's actually quite a bit of science to support this. Connection isn't just emotionally supportive, it's physiologically impactful. When people feel supported, when we feel seen, when we feel connected to, we can actually measure those changes, the changes that occur within the body. So things like chronic stress, the stress load decreases, inflammatory markers, loneliness can be actually an inflammatory state. It's a stress-inducing state. And so inflammatory markers can be better supported when there is a connection. Hormonal signaling overall improves. So there's something about social connection that we know, right? And that has been actually, studies have been done and has shown that social connection assists us in regulating things like cortisol and things like insulin. These are two areas that really play a huge role when it comes to topics like ovulation and egg quality and implantation. There's also this topic of resilience, right? Our ability to actually buffer against stress, because stress is a natural part of life, but chronic, consistent, persistent stress, that's a whole other conversation. Our ability to actually buffer against stress, when we feel supported, we're more likely to sustain nourishing habits without slipping into things like perfectionism or shame. We're less likely to spiral when things don't go exactly as planned. All of those are signals that our system, our nervous system, has a capacity for resilience. And perhaps most importantly, connection signals safety, right? Safety to the nervous system. There has yet to be a client that I've worked with or a sister circle that I've been in or a communal space that I've shared where the importance of safety doesn't come up. Because it is that foundational and is that central to our nervous system feeling as though it is being handled and supported with care. So your nervous system is going to prioritize fertility or allow fertility to be prioritized when your body feels safe. And isolation, as I mentioned before, can trigger threat responses. Think about it, is that until quite recently in our history as human beings, we really would not be in a state of isolation unless something really bad happened, right? And so there is a long-standing epigenetic memory of the importance of connection and communal support that is just really embedded in our system. So connection tells our body that I'm supported, I'm not alone. And as I mentioned, this is not just abstract conversations, that these are biological conversations. So a few specific examples that I really want to share to fully flesh out what we're talking about today and illustrate this conversation is that I had one of my mentees. In addition to teaching fertility education work and obviously the work that I do with hormone health and nervous system regulation and somatic therapy and hypnotherapy, what have you, I also teach fertility education, different aspects of fertility education, education support to those who are actually going to be future fertility awareness educators. So I'm a faculty member in the program. And one of my mentees in that program shared that she had actually, referred a client to me who had been trying to conceive for about a year and a half. So with this client, her charts look fantastic. Her labs were really solid. There was nothing obvious to really quote unquote fix. But every time her period arrived, we found that she was isolating herself for days, right? That she felt like she was failing, right? That she felt like there was something wrong with her. And those were the messages that she had been internalizing every time her cycle came. So eventually with this client, she also joined a fertility support group. And for the first time, she was in a circle of other women who described the exact same emotional roller coaster, the same kind of hope and then grief cycle that led to confusion, hope, grief, confusion, right? This is not an unusual pattern for those who are navigating a fertility journey to experience when their cycle comes. But it wasn't until this client started working with me that she pinpointed that, and then also being in a circle of others who were experiencing the same was really profound. Within around a couple of months of consistent support and working with me, and then as well as the group support, her cycles started to shift and look in a way that was much more robust and supported than even before. So while her charts look good, right, she had her luteal phases were on the very slightly shorter side, around 12 days. And her luteal phases started to full out, come out into more like 14 days solidly. Her temperatures, right, became more robust. She was showing clear temp shifts before, but we saw like really clear, strong, robust temps. And then also she noticed that even while she was experiencing cervical fluid before, her cervical fluid production also became more juicy and abundant and closer to what we would call super fertile type cervical fluid, right? The egg white quality stuff. So it's really important to know that it wasn't about protocol change with this client. It wasn't about supplements. What her body was really, really yearning for was a sense of, I'm not alone, right? I'm safe, I'm supported. And then within a few months after this, she conceived and has gone on to deliver a sweet little baby boy. Okay, so just sharing this as an example of framing how something as seemingly simple as support, right, peer support, can really make a profound difference when navigating hormone health and fertility journeys. One of the most, something else I'm looking through my notes here, and one of the most overlooked aspects of reproductive health, I really love this topic, is this conversation around co-regulation. So what is co-regulation? It refers to how our nervous systems influence one another, right? When you are in space with another person, you are having not just a emotional experience or a psychological experience or a spiritual experience, but you're actually having a physiological engagement with them, even if there aren't words being said or there isn't physical contact being made, right? This is part of us as social beings, right? We as human beings being social, innately social, is this process called co-regulation that naturally occurs. So when you're around someone who is regulated, present, grounded, your nervous system naturally begins to mirror that state, right? Your breath may slow down. Interestingly, it's shown that heart rate variability can shift in this co-regulation dynamic. Now, if you're around a person who's grounded and present and regulated, it can have an impact on our overall stress hormones and their ability to stabilize. So this is why relationships matter in the preconception process. It's why the quality of relationships also matter. Co-regulation can soften physical tension. It can support in stabilizing mood, reduce in rumination, right? When our mind is running over and over again on something, it can support hormonal communication by lowering stress signals in the body. I had another one of my students who, with their partner, they began doing 10 minutes of breathing with each other each morning. And this wasn't any kind of like fancy breath work. It was just sitting together, being present with one another and breathing. And that simple practice created just beautiful, powerful nervous system synchronicity, right? Connection between them. Over time, this student reported that sleep was improving, her digestion started to settle, cycles which had been erratic and kind of out of whack for years, that those also became more consistent. It really cannot be understated how powerful it can be to have someone in your space and in your corner to truly hold space for you, and how your body then has the space to respond, not just on a surface level, but actually even on a cellular level. So this is why I often say that there is when I work with my clients, one of the things that we work on is, how do we support you in cultivating community, right? Or tapping into the community that's already there. Because there's no single practitioner that should be someone's entire support system, especially when navigating something like preconception. The most resilient journeys, I would say, are supported by many hands. And that might look like a mix of emotional support, somatic or therapeutic support, fertility awareness education, integrative healthcare, community spaces where you don't feel like you have to explain yourself. Right? There's no perfect combination or one combination for everyone, but what really matters is that your support system is reflecting your needs, your values, and your lived experience, and that you don't have to carry everything alone. So this is actually one of the reasons why I'm starting to integrate this model into my practice. And if is something that you're interested in participating in, trying to conceive, conscious conception support groups that are nervous system regulation support groups, please do tap in, drop on into my email list. You can go to my website, sign up for my email list, or go to my Substack, and you'll receive notifications when I open those up there. I want to name something important. The impact of community doesn't just stop when a person is preparing for pregnancy. There's quite a bit of great research out there that shows that a strong support system before, during, and after pregnancy, all of those are very important for during pregnancy, right? Lowering stress hormones and supporting healthier fetal development, improving postpartum mental health, strengthening bonding and attachment. And then there's lots and lots of evidence about the importance of support after a person has after a pregnancy has completed his beautiful journey and there's a baby in the world, right? Certainly support it really needs to be amplified in those spaces and can have a tremendous impact on maternal and infant overall health, and certainly maternal mental health. The emotional and physiological environment of preconception becomes part of our blueprint for the next generation. I do believe that when we heal in community, we don't just change our story, we change the story that continues on through future generations of children. So if you have been listening to this and this lands for you in any kind of way, if you're feeling isolated in your preconception journey or in your fertility journey, I want to say something and be very gentle here as I share this. It doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong, right? If you're experiencing isolation, it does not mean that there's anything wrong with you or that you're doing anything wrong. We live in a very, very complicated world, and there are oftentimes can be more opportunities for isolation and loneliness than there can be for easeful connection. So know that there's nothing wrong with you, that community building is a skill set, right? It's a skill set. I'll be very honest and transparent. As a third culture kid who grew up moving around all the time, it's a skill set that I've had to learn, and I am still very clumsy with at times, right? So it's actually the same way that, we learn how to do other things, tie our shoes or ride a bike or, any other skill that we have learned to do. Community building also takes practice and it can often, especially once we're out of, our school age years, it can take intentionality. Okay. It could look like in several ways. It could look like involving partnership, right, with more intentionality, family, if that is a safe space for you, with more intentionality, and also, right, our chosen networks like a support group, as I've mentioned several times here. So knowing that you can always reach out and we can chat. If you want to reach out and have a consultation to see if the work that I do resonates with you and can provide you with a level of support, please don't be shy in doing so. Know that I've linked all of my resources, including free ones, and all kinds of other things over in my Substack. But to close out today, as we're finishing up this discussion, I would love to leave you with this insight. Connection is a form of prevention. Connection is a form of nervous system medicine, and connection is a form of generational care. Your body is wired for community. Your nervous system is wired for co-regulation, and your journey deserves to be witnessed and held in a way that feels aligned and supported for you. So as you move through the rest of this week, I invite you to reflect on this. Who or what helps your body feel safest, most seen, and most supported? Right? Just a gentle reflection. Preparing for life is a collective act, and I feel very fortunate to be part of your thought and processing today. I'm so glad to be in this space with you and us to share this ongoing conversation. So as I said before, you can find deeper dives and resources and reflections on my Substack, and I look forward to sharing space with you again soon. So until next time, stay connected.
That does it for this episode of the Connection Care Community Podcast with Majida. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you're leaving with a fresh perspective on your body and overall well-being, along with practical tools you can integrate into daily life. The support doesn't stop here. Be sure to connect with us online at connectioncaretherapy.com for more resources to guide you on your journey. You can also find us on Substack and connect with Majida on Instagram at Majida Sai'da. Remember to rate, review, and share this podcast. And most importantly, stay connected.